crazy. Sorry. My life's been kind of crazy lately. A lot going on. But I didn't forget about you. Welcome back to Whispers and Tingles ASMR. Let's get started. Also, gonna do a little of these too. So, I never thought that I would find myself writing this. For context, I have a doctorate in wildlife biology, and I live and work in Mozambique. I work a lot in the ocean, and I've seen a lot of normal but weird stuff. The night before last, I couldn't sleep. I went down to the living room sofa so I don't wake my partner. Sitting on the sofa, I hear a rustling in the front room. We have cats and two big dogs. We leave the front door open so they can get out and in. The house complex is guarded, but this happened around 3:30 a.m. and the guard is likely half asleep on his hut. I think the rustling is the cats, and I think nothing of it, but I start to feel uneasy. Some slight movement in the mirror by the room door catches my eye. I smash my head around and I saw something bipedal in the mirror. I see a head with large glowing eyes, shoulders, two arms ending in what seems like claws without coloration. Whole body seemed the same, pale gray, other than the yellow eyes that seem to glow or reflect the light from the room I'm in. This thing was hanging from the roof on the other side of the door, seemingly watching me through the mirror. Our eyes locked for what seemed to be about 3 to 5 seconds before I leapt up, pulling my groin in the process. I shout, "Nope, nope, 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 nope. This is not real. This is not happening." As I run out of the room, in my head, I want to ID it sensibly so I don't go crazy. This thing immediately moved fast, exiting the house around the same time as I exited the room. Then I see a very large shape on the deck running left to right before literally looking like it jumps off into the night. I go upstairs and I explained what happened to my partner. My hairs are standing on end, constant shivers down my spine, and I end up in tears. I'm a big boy. I've jumped water for sharks, jumped in and tagged them with spear guns, sampled whales with a crossbow off a speedboat, been around baboons. We don't even have them here, and these are much smaller than what I saw, and I am familiar with smaller animals that we see rarely at night here. This terrified me. What terrified me more was going to the white cement ridge, the beam, the row of blocks on the ceiling that this was hanging from on the roof, and there were 2 dirty marks / prints the next morning. No fingerprints or monkey paws, just normal marks of what would be the bottom of the palm of your hands when they're dirty. Normally, animals wouldn't dare enter the garden due to the large dogs which were sleeping in the bedroom with the cats the whole night. research which led me here. I'd never heard of a crawler before. Well, that's unnerving, isn't it? Next, I don't have an explanation for this, nor any pictures or anything. I don't expect anyone to believe this because I wouldn't. But I'm hoping maybe it will ring some bells for someone else that may have experienced this. So, to start things off, I have flown probably 100 times for my job, just within the last 12 months. I'm not a stranger to flying, and I don't get sick. This particular flight had been delayed and undelayed probably 3 to 4 times. It was a red-eye flight, so any delays were especially annoying. Once it came in that it was going to be delayed until 1 a.m., I told the gate attendant that I'd rather just get a hotel. They gave me a voucher, and I walked off. I forgot my phone charger, so I double back, and I'm maximum 3 gates away when I realize they're boarding. So I rush over there to get a spot again. I'm reassigned an empty row to myself. Row 23. I was F. No passengers were in any of the 6 seats. As soon as the door is about to close, a very elderly man jumps on board. He gets to row 23 and sits on the side opposite of mine. So now we're both in row 23, but separate sides of the aisle. Now there was something off about this man. I can't put my finger on it, but he just didn't seem normal. For one, he was matching my outfit. We were both in all black hoodies and skinnies with gray sneakers, which is odd for an old man to be wearing in 100-degree weather. I only did because I was feeling edgy that day. Not only that, but his eyes are very big and dark, and his skin is stretched tightly over him. I tried not to look too hard, but he stared at me with his back to his window for about 5 minutes after takeoff before he laid down to go to sleep. I didn't think anything of it because sometimes old men are just old men. But here's where it gets weird. I lay down the same way as him, and I drift off to sleep. I remember physically waking up when the plane started to nosedive. I said to myself, I'm just going to close my eyes and hope the pilot corrects it. So I shut my eyes and I started to drift back off. But probably 5 seconds later, I wake back up and say, oh shit, we're still falling. Just as I say that to myself, I start to get the sensation that the plane is nearing the ground. You know that feeling that you get right before landing, even when the windows are closed. The plane makes impact with the ground. That felt like a huge pop and skid. Like the pilots in this scenario were able to get the plane to crash on its belly and not on its nose. As soon as it made impact, I realized that I was still alive. I went to get my seatbelt off, and suddenly there was this huge flash of orange, followed by white. That's all I remember. The weirdest thing about this is there was no transition. was no point where I woke up and said, wow, that was a crazy dream, and then went back to sleep. It was like the crash happened. There was a wormhole, and suddenly I'm back on the same plane. I sat up when we got the announcement that we were landing soon, and I felt like I had been hit in the head with a bat. I had never had a headache like that, and I'd never had motion sickness on a plane. My stomach was twisting, and I was trying to rub the headache out of my head when I looked to my left. And the old guy was gone. The row was empty. I looked all around the other rows to see if he had moved, and he wasn't there. I watched to see if he would deplane. He never did. I looked all around the airport, and he was nowhere to be found. I was so sick and disoriented. I spent the next probably 30 minutes hogging a family restroom to myself. I know that this sounds insane, and I'm not going to delve into it much myself for fear of going crazy. But Jesus, I feel like that plane crashed and my universe shifted. Where the fuck did the old man go? Why was I so disoriented? Why don't I remember waking up from that dream? Spooky, 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 spooky. That feels like maybe that old man was actually you. Maybe that was like a time travel situation, I don't know. Perhaps in an alternate reality, the plane did crash. I don't know, but that's pretty freaky stuff. That would really throw me off, I'll tell you that. Next, I have a core memory from when I was really young that I remember vividly, and I had never been able to understand. So in Utah, there's this old historic train that people go on for joyrides called the Heber Creeper. My family went on it, and I remember at one point getting up from my seat to play around and seeing a rather thin and tall woman with a purple shirt and a black camera bag slung over her shoulder. The reason she stood out to me was because she said a few words to me along the lines of, "Oh, you're so adorable," or something. I went back to my family for a minute, and I got back out of my seat again to see the same woman, but with a completely different body type. This time, she was short and chubby. Same purple shirt, same black camera bag slung around her, and she was in the same spot. The weirdest part is that she smiled at me and acknowledged me again, almost like she wanted me to notice her, both times. It was a train, so it's not like someone came and switched places with her, because where would they go? I remember being so scared about it that I ran back to my family and I tried to tell them what happened, but they just kind of laughed it off and probably didn't believe me because I was so young. It still weirds me out to this day because I was so sure that this woman completely shape-shifted. That's really cool. Oh my god. A shapeshifter. Sweet. That's really rad, kind of. A year ago, I found a stuffed bear at an estate sale. It was cute and charming, so I bought it. Not long after, I started having nightmares. Then me and my fiancé started seeing tall animals outside of our window. We live in a second-story apartment. It went from that to smiling figures in the hall and in the bathroom mirror reflection. We called the fire department. No gas leak. It got more intense seeing me standing in the kitchen while I was at work. The figure would turn around with huge, almost horse-sized teeth, grinning very wide and unhinging its jaw. This went on for months, seeing these figures. And then the apartment started breathing. The AC would perfectly replicate the sound of deep breaths and stop instantly when we would check the living room where it was. That same night, there was rustling in the closet, with voices and soft cries coming from it. My fiancé opened the door and quickly shut it. She started crying and screaming. I opened it, and that stuffed bear was smiling and had human-like eyes. I quickly grabbed it, and I grabbed my handgun and walked it outside to the field. I fired a shot, then cut up the bear into many pieces, stomping them and burning them on the road. We went for a walk to clear our heads. We came back, and every single piece of the bear was gone. A month later, we moved out of that apartment. All a true story, and something we try not to think about. We called it a smiler. That is a very scary berry. That's what I'd call it, the scary bear. That's really freaky, actually. God. And I love going to estate sales and yard sales and thrift stores. But I'm always like, ooh, I want to make sure this object isn't gonna be crazy when I bring it home, or have some weird history that I don't know about. That is really spooky. I'm glad you got out of there. Next. I am currently at work. I work in a nursing home, and I'm a housekeeper. Anyway, I was cleaning one of my residents' room who's out of the facility right now. I was doing my normal routine, and there was this balloon she had gotten from her birthday. It was sitting on the floor because all the helium had gone out of it. I was turning around, and I saw a young girl, brown hair, colorful t-shirt and shorts, playing with the balloon. I blinked, and she was gone. My heart started pounding, and I said, "You are dead. Please leave. You are not welcome here," before I hurried up to leave. I stood at the door, watching this balloon squeeze as if a child had hugged it. I closed that door so fast. I don't see full-on ghosts, just shadows normally, but I did have a near-death experience on Father's Day, and I wonder, did the veil become thinner for me? Well, you're very brave to work there after that. I don't know if I could. That's pretty freaky, dude. And perhaps the veil did become thinner. I mean, if you experienced something near death, that might be a thing. I don't know. spooky. And what is it with balloons? I've read a lot of stories about balloons being like haunted, or I don't know. Now they kind of freak me out. Let's read another one. My little brother enjoyed getting into mischief growing up, especially when it involved investigating our haunted house. We noticed no matter how many people are in the basement, no one ever wants to stay very long. It always felt like multiple sets of eyes were watching you, waiting. Around that time, our church gave us small Bibles, and we were reading them because we heard that can deter ghosts. We figured the most haunted place in our house was the basement, so we went to the basement to read the Bible out loud. We should have known something was up when we went to the basement door and it wouldn't budge open. It took both of us to force the door open. We got to the basement and started reading. I didn't get more than 2 pages in when we started to hear very heavy footsteps and whispers. We just thought maybe it was one of our older siblings fucking with us. We looked where their footsteps were coming, and there was nothing there. But the moment we looked away, my little brother slammed to the ground. He screamed in agony, begging for help. I immediately stopped reading and ran to his side to help him up. I honestly thought he tripped. That was until I saw the scratch marks on his back. There were 3 distinct marks. They looked like a velociraptor or something scratched him hard. I immediately yelled in all directions to leave us alone. That was a friggin' mistake. We heard a blood-curdling scream, and we took off running up the stairs as we went. The moment we made it upstairs, the door slammed shut so hard it cracked the hinges. We learned that day to never read your Bible in the basement. Whatever is down there really doesn't like it. To this day, you can't stay down in that basement for too long. I am 25, and I will not stay down there longer than I have to. Three marks is never good. That 3 marks is demonic usually. So that's definitely something bad down in that basement. Always the frickin' basements, bro. Always the frickin' basements. Okay, let's go to the next one. I live in New Hampshire, and every once in a while I go to North Conway. 2 days ago, I went up to my house up there, and it was weird. I went on a hike with my family. My mom kept complaining about the smell. It smelled like something rotting. Eventually, during the hike, it got foggy, and I got split up. I was scared shitless, and I could barely see the trail. On the way, though, I smelt it. The rotting smell. I walked around for a bit until I found it. A group of dead deer, each with their organs ripped out. I had to choke back a scream and throw up. Then I saw something move. It looked like a deer at first, but then I thought it was a reindeer creature came out of the trees, and I was horrified. It was a tall, deer-like creature, and it was staring me down. I sprinted as fast as I could as I heard another scream. Eventually, I got out of the fog, and I found my family. They, too, had heard the scream. We got out of there fast. That night, however, I was on the porch when I saw what looked like a deer on the road. But as it got closer, I could make out that it was standing on its legs. Then I realized it looked identical to the same thing that I saw on the hike. It just stood there. I let out a gut-wrenching scream, and my dad heard my scream and came out with a shotgun. He shot a few shots in the air, and the creature darted back. We left ASAP. After doing research, I found out about Stag Man. I don't know if it was one, but it might be similar. Please help, I swear. I heard that scream 20 minutes ago. If anyone has any answers, please let me know. Spooky, spooky. I have never heard of Stag Man before. I mean, certainly, I've heard of people turning into different creatures and what have you, and certainly skinwalker type things that look really crazy. But Stag Man, that's a new one. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have to look and see if there's any more stories that have this same scenario. Okay. I had a crazy experience last month after my cousin, who worked in Hollywood for 25 plus years, passed away. I'm hoping someone out there can help me make sense of it. There's a hill that I hike in Los Angeles where you can see the Hollywood sign. The day after my cousin died, I hiked up there listening to his playlist that his wife had sent me that he listened to in his final days. I was grieving, reflecting on our childhood, and I decided to say some words to him while viewing the sign. But when I got to the top, the Hollywood sign was gone. Like, really gone. I couldn't believe the timing. I assumed it was down for renovations, but I took photos and videos and even asked another hiker if I was losing it. She confirmed that she didn't see it either. It was a clear, normal LA afternoon. No clouds. No sign. I texted a few people joking that he took it with him. Walking down the hill, I couldn't help but think, what are the chances that iconic sign is getting a makeover the same day my cousin dies? So weird. When I got home, I searched Google. I asked AI. I checked X, local news. Nothing about the sign being removed or renovated. 3 days later, I did the same hike again. Same time of day, same clear weather. The sign was back, untouched, not one crane in sight. I can't wrap my head around it. Glitch. Timeline jump. A sign from my cousin. That'd be a pretty big stunt to pull off less than 24 hours after passing. But he was an epic human. What do you think? That's a glitch in the Matrix. Super, super glitch. That's really cool. And bananas. That's bananas. And I love it. I was walking down a street in my neighborhood, and I was turning the corner. And while I was turning, I saw someone just disappear in front of my eyes. He kinda barely pulled a stick from his back pocket and appeared to spin as he disappeared. It made a weird crackling noise, kind of like a whip being struck. Now, this happened just a few hours ago, and I think I might have been the only person to see this, as it happened pretty early in the morning, like 6, 7 a.m. The guy was an average height, average weight. He was wearing jeans and a black shirt. Seemed like me and him were the only ones on that street. I don't want to tell anyone in real life, so I don't sound like a maniac, but I don't know how to prove that I saw this. Let me know if anyone else has seen anything like this before. This is why I'm not a morning person. I don't need to be seeing people disappear at 6 and 7 a.m. Okay. That's just an absolute nope. And also, like, what in the friggin' Wizards of Waverly Place? A stick, and we're spinning and making a sound and disappearing. That's very wizardy. I don't know. Like, what the Harry Potter is happening there, but get it. Thank you for your story. Wow. If any of my subscribers have ever seen something disappear, please pipe in and comment and let me know. I would love to hear your story. I grew up in a house that had a lot of activity. My father also had a terrible temper. I always walked on eggshells around him because you never knew what would set him off. One evening, I had a friend over. We were playing hide and seek outside, and I needed to do a number 1. I was 7 at the time, and probably because I didn't want to stop the game, I peed in a bush so I wouldn't have to go inside to do my business. Well, my father found out, and I was in big trouble. My friend left, and I was sent to my room. I was deeply embarrassed, and I cried myself to sleep with how unfair it all was. I woke up very late at night. I could tell it was late because all the lights were off, both inside and outside, and it was dark. I heard adult voices outside of my room in the pool area. I couldn't make out what the voices were saying, but it was a whole conversation with laughing. It was almost like Charlie Brown, wah wah wah, adult speak. In any case, I was curious, but terrified that my father would see me if I peeked through the window. I decided to go down the hallway and sneak into the patio. Walking past the living room, I saw that it was 3-something on the VCR. Once on the patio, I crawled to the windows facing the area that I heard the noises from, and I took a peek. I saw the most bizarre sight. Deformed figures sitting around the table, missing limbs, and looking like they were playing cards. They were grotesque. They didn't see me. I snuck back to the living room and I stayed in that room until morning. I then snuck back into my bedroom at first light so I wouldn't get into trouble. To this day, I'm not sure what I saw. No, it wasn't a dream, and no, I don't and have never walked in my sleep. That is horrible and terrifying, and it sounds like a demon party. I don't like that. I do not like that for you. Okay, there's two other responses that are sort of connected in, like, is this a demon experience kind of a story? So hang on. I was at a nightclub. This place itself had always been filled with wild people. Everyone is either on drugs, half naked, or both. I had been going to this spot for some time now, and the most I'd ever done is dance, smoke, and drink. For some strange reason, I didn't drink that night because honestly, I'm not a heavy drinker. The long-term effects of drinking for a couple months kicked in, and I just wanted to sit down. I smoked that night, like I always do. Anyways, while I was sitting, I noticed someone sat close to me. I hate it when people do that, but I was with someone, so I just remained in my position. While I was busy observing my environment, I didn't stare directly at the individual next to me, but my vision grazed him. To my surprise, I saw some sort of demonic face. It was so fast, I almost didn't believe it. When I focused my vision, it turned out that the person wasn't wearing a mask or anything of the sort. I didn't overreact or feel scared. I almost thought I was on drugs when it happened, but I had to keep reminding myself that I was coherent. I didn't turn to stare again, but then I saw it again on another person on the dance floor. It looked see-through, but to me it was clear enough to make out what I saw. It looked like a see-through mask of a demon was attached to them. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I'm wondering if anyone else has ever had a demonic encounter in their life and how it happened. Sounds like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that club. So, it's bound to have some weird, obviously evil energy in it. That's not great. Okay, here's the other response to this. I think I experienced something similar. My current neighbor is awful. She has a tiny baby girl who she screams horrendous things at, among other things that I won't describe. Child Protective Services did a full investigation. My other neighbors all know how horrible she is and what's going on. I saw her in person recently for the first time, and it was shocking how she looked. It was just a glimpse that I got, but she looked inhuman, angry, with her face contorted in a way I've never seen a face do before. I've been around mean, angry, abusive people plenty of times before, and no one has ever looked like that. I've seen her many times, and she never looked like how she did that first time. It was scary, and I haven't told anyone in my personal life. I put up wards and protections around my home, specifically against her evil energy. is 100% true. I'm sharing this now because I'm so curious if anyone has any stories or explanations. This happened many, many moons ago. It was the day after my birthday. I had just turned 9. I remember that specifically because I was gifted a new glow-in-the-dark star sheets that I loved. I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and before fully waking, it was like this strange sense of something was purposely pulling me out of my slumber, like being nudged awake. Through groggy eyes, I saw Claudia, my stepmother, sitting there at the edge of my bed. Upon awakening, I was eye level with her waist. I saw her pants that she always wears, her hands folded in her lap. In my head, I didn't understand why Claudia came to see me so late. I began to draw my eyes up towards her face, and I quickly realized that she was translucent. By the time I realized that, my eyes landed on her face. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. To this day, it still gives me chills when I talk about it. When I reached her face expecting Claudia, I instead saw 2 black gaping holes for eyes bearing down into my gaze. An inhuman smile stretching from ear to ear, her head cocked. It was horrifically mocking. It felt as if it wanted to wake me up just to terrorize me. Terror flooded my being in a way I never experienced since. Pure horror. I turned my head into my pillow. After a while, it disappeared. 2 years later, that exact day, a day after my birthday, Claudia died. What makes this spookier? Claudia became mysteriously ill a few years before that incident. None of the doctors knew why she was sick. I remember her becoming much more Catholic and fearful before I saw that demonic apparition. Still freaks me out.